listen carefully to the first part of the conversation and answer questions 1 to 8.
Cosmic Home Delivery. My name is Gary. How may I help you today?
Hello, I'd like to place an order.
Certainly, madam. I'm afraid our computer system crashed earlier today. I'll have to take the details down on paper and then enter them later when it's been fixed. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
So, can I take your name, please?
Yes, it's Alexandra Hornby.
Sorry, could you spell the surname for me? H...
Yes, then O-R-N-B-Y.
Oh, fine. And then your address.
That's number 28 Wood Road, which is in Ilford, I-L-F-O-R-D, and that's near Northchester. The postcode's NC1 2FR.
Thank you. And do you have an account with us?
I do. I've got the number here. 944-56781. Is that long enough?
8 digits? Yes, it is. Good. Now, what would you like to order today?
I want a coffee table. I think there's only the one type.
I expect so. Perhaps you can tell me the price. I can use that to check later, just in case there's more than one.
Yes, it's £39.99p.
Fine. Sorry about all these extra questions.
It's no problem at all.
Now, that size of order value does mean you're entitled to a free gift. Did you want to take up that option on this occasion?
Yes, I do. I've already got a calculator like the one on offer, but I do like the look of the handbag, so I'd like one of those, please.
Certainly. And can I just check, as an account holder, you may have been sent a voucher.
Oh, yes, for a discount. Let me see.
The reference number will probably start with the letter D.
It does, and it continues BR29.
Great. Now, how would you like your order delivered? There's standard service within a week, and then express, which comes within 2 days, or special, which means it arrives the same day.
Special would be ideal, but I know it's a bit expensive, so I'll make do with express, I think. Standard is very slow.
It is, to be honest.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you will have some time to look at questions 9 and 10. Now listen and answer questions 9 and 10.
Well, that's your order completed. Could I just trouble you for another minute or so to ask you a couple of questions to help us improve our service as much as possible?
Yes.
Firstly, we do like to try and keep a record of how customers have heard of Cosmic Mail Order. How did you? Was it from our advertising campaign?
Oh, I think I would have remembered any advertisements, on TV, for example. I only read newspapers occasionally, so that would have passed me by. A friend of mine had been using you for years and encouraged me to give it a go, so I looked on the internet to find you to see what was available on the site.
That's great, thank you. The second thing is, we're thinking of introducing a number of promotional offers.
Oh, yes, I got a little brochure about them with my last order. I've got the list here.
So can I ask which ones appeal to you?
Well, let's see. There's quite a few things here that don't really apply to me, actually. For example, my mobile phone bills are so low that I hardly notice them. Likewise, they shut down the local cinema. I do enjoy a meal out, though, so that discount could be of interest. And I like to get away at weekends when I can, and some of the places you want to visit are expensive, so it'd be lovely if they became cheaper. As for planes, well, I haven't been abroad for a while now, and in any case, I prefer the train where possible.
Fine. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Not at all.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2. Part 2.
You will hear a trainer giving a talk to a group of cyclists. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully to the first part of the talk and answer questions 11 to 15.
Hello everybody. It's nice to see that so many of you made it, even on an evening as rainy as tonight. OK, now, whether you're new to cycling as a sport or are returning to it after some years' absence, I'll just go over a few basic points. Now, race preparation is a complex business and there are many factors to consider. The first area of concern is mechanical. Now, this involves the machine itself, that is, your bike, and also, no less importantly in fact, clothing. This will protect your body and aid your performance, providing you wear the right kit. The next area to concern yourselves with is the mental. This is you as a person. You can have the best bike in the world, but you won't get the most out of it if you don't have the right mindset. So, tactics are important to consider. Another factor which is essential to a good performance is determination. You need to feel this so that you can really push yourselves to your limits. To accompany this, you also need knowledge of your bike, yourself, physics, other riders, the course, and so on. Finally, strange though it may seem after all I've said so far, you need relaxation. If you can't switch off sometimes, you won't get to recharge your batteries. OK, and that takes us on to the physical side of race preparation. The first and perhaps most obvious aspect of this is training, and we'll come to some of the details of that in a minute. Another important aspect to pay attention to is diet, and you'll soon find that if you don't eat well, you won't see yourselves performing as well as you might. Then there's also the question of style, and you'll need to learn to develop the most effective ways for each of you to deliver your performance. And the details of this depend on which kind of event you're competing in. And finally, you need to take body care into account. You need to stay healthy in order to be able to give of your best. Right, those are the basic ingredients of race preparation.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the talk and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now I'd like to turn your attention to some of the details of a good training regime and what you should and shouldn't do through the year. Let's consider various activities in turn. The first thing to think about is circuit training. This is an indoor series of gym exercises designed to work on all parts of your body. This starts as the racing season closes with the end of summer and continues right through the cold season, and stops you going off the boil when you aren't competing. It's extremely beneficial, although I would stress you do need a qualified gym instructor to tell you how to do it properly. Next, weight training. This is also very good for cyclists, and it tops up the natural strength that cycling produces. Exercises need to be arranged as part of a carefully calculated routine, and this routine needs to be sensibly followed. It's a good idea for continuity to carry on using weights throughout the year, as you can lose strength just as quickly as you can gain it. Something simpler and requiring no equipment is mobility work. While cycling has a great many benefits for the body, it doesn't work every part of it, and indeed keeps some parts locked in pretty much the same position. So exercises that involve twisting and turning and generally promoting flexibility are advisable before the start of each race throughout the summer season. Another important activity is pleasure riding. Perhaps this doesn't sound so important to you, but you don't race all year, and when you do race, it's pretty hard riding. So you can sometimes forget that cycling is actually basically a fun thing to do. So, when you hang up your racing bike at the end of the summer, get out another bike and go for some gentler, enjoyable rides during the winter. Weather permitting, of course. And finally, running. This is, of course, another sport in its own right, and for this reason some cyclists are rather sniffy about it. However, it is good exercise and maintains aerobic fitness very effectively. But it is rather hard on the knees, and in different ways from cycling, so you're best advised to keep your running to out of the racing season, and wrap up well against the cold when you do go. So, now I'd like to say...
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You'll hear a conversation in a university student services office. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hello, I'm Dawn Matthews.
Yes, hello. I've been referred to you because I'm inquiring about the refresher courses that you run. I'd like to find out a bit more about them.
OK. Well, we run quite a few different short courses for students who are either returning to study or studying part-time. Tell me about your situation.
Well, I think that I really need some help in preparing for the coming semester, especially to build up my confidence a bit and help me study effectively because, you see, I've been out in the workforce for nearly 12 years now, so it really is a long time since I was last a student.
Yes, it can seem like a long time, can't it? Well, let me start by telling you what courses we have that might suit you. Are you an undergraduate or a postgraduate, arts or sciences?
Undergraduate, and I'm in the business faculty.
Right then. Well, first of all, there's our intensive Study for Success seminar on the 1st and 2nd of February.
Mm-hmm.
It's aimed at students like you who are uncertain about what to expect at college and looks at a fairly wide range of approaches to university learning to motivate you to begin your study and build on your own learning strategies.
That sounds good. What are some of the strategies that are presented?
Well, we try to cover all aspects of study. Some of the strategies in writing, for example, would be improving your planning for writing, organising your thinking, and building some techniques to help you write more clearly. With reading, there'll be sessions aimed at getting into the habit of analysing material as you read it, and tips to help you record and remember what you've read. It really is very important to begin reading confidently right from the beginning. There's also advice on how to get the most from your lectures and practice in giving confident presentations, as well as how to prepare for exams.
What about the motivational side of things?
Well, there's a range of motivational exercises that we do to help the students feel positive and enthusiastic about their study. The process of learning and exploring a subject can lead to a whole new way of looking at the world, and the study skills and techniques that you build up can be applied in all sorts of different ways.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Actually, I'm very excited about the whole thing of taking up studying again, but, you know, I'm a little nervous about whether I'll manage to get everything done. I suppose it's the same for all mature students.
Of course it is. Two of the key components of the course are time management and overcoming procrastination. People discover that once they learn to plan their days, all the work can be accomplished and there'll still be time for leisure.
Is there an enrolment fee?
Well, just a minute, let's see. The cost is £30, which includes all course materials and morning tea. You have to arrange your own lunch.
Well, that wouldn't be a problem. I already make sandwiches for my 3 kids and my wife and myself every day. I won't have to change my routine.
No. Now, I need to tell you that this is a very popular course and it's essential that you book well ahead of time. In fact, the course convener tells me that there are only 5 places left.
What other course might be good for me?
There is one other that you could benefit from. It's simply called Learning Skills for University Study and is on 3 consecutive mornings, starting on a Monday from 9 to 12, and costs £25. This is aimed at upgrading the study skills most school leavers have and help them cope with the increased demands of university study. It focuses mainly on making students more responsible for their own success.
What sort of things are covered in this course?
Well, basically, it's more advanced thinking, note-taking, reading and writing strategies, but also some input about stress management.
I think I'd be better off starting from the basics and looking at all the strategies, don't you?
Yes, from what you've told me, I think that's more in line with your situation.
All right then. Can I book a place on the Study for Success seminar course now?
Yes. Let me just get out a registration form and take down your details.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You will hear a writer giving a talk about the different kinds of writing that the audience might want to try doing. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen and answer questions 31 to 40.
So, I'm now going to say a few words about the various different kinds of writing you may want to consider. Each has its own challenges and rewards, and it's really a question of seeing what suits you best. There are no rights and wrongs here. Let's start by considering the short story. Remember that a short story isn't just a very concise novel. There are 3 basic styles: the story itself, the slice of life section, and the surprise type, and all of them are equally valid as treatments of the genre. When producing a short story, you don't have time for a slow build-up of interest, so you need to get in there straight away and begin with a crisis. Then there's non-fiction, which can sell very well, with biographies in particular frequently hitting the bestseller lists. It's important, however, to be sure your chosen topic is genuinely interesting to people, and you know enough about it to do it justice. So when you're submitting your idea to a publisher, it's worthwhile to give them details of specialist knowledge you have. What about articles? Now, this is a very wide area, of course, going from the very learned and obscure to the populist gossip type. Articles based on giving advice are a proven area, and to give them a sufficient focus, you should produce your article for a definite market. That will help to define your purpose. Turning to something different, there's the question of poetry. It's often hard to define what poetry is exactly. Maybe it's easier to say what it isn't. But it should be subtle, so the message of a poem oughtn't to be overly obvious. True poems let the ideas sit there for the reader to ponder. What they must do is sound good, like singing. So I recommend reading what you write aloud to yourself to check the melody. Well, then there's plays, which are basically novels, but told only through conversation. A playwright includes minimal instructions for actions, but not for every small action the actors will perform. Things such as moves towards sofa and so on are for the director to come up with. If you're thinking of trying your hand at a play, a good starting point would be to educate yourself a little in the art of acting, so that you know what the people who deliver your work can and can't do with it. What next? There's radio, of course. Radio uses an enormous range of material, and the BBC Writing for Radio Handbook contains information about all of this. To begin with, I suggest regional stations for sending your stuff to. The competition for national radio is extremely high. OK, another interesting area is children's literature. Now, very few, if any, children's books are published without pictures. But this doesn't mean that you, as writer, have to draw them. That's for the illustrator. What you do need to do is be clear who you want to write for. So fix on one age group and then aim your stories at that. Right, I've saved what I consider to be the best and the hardest till last, the novel. Very long and very difficult to do well, but certainly not impossible, as any bookshop shelves will confirm. One of the first things to decide is from what point of view you will tell your story. A popular choice is the first person, and this technique certainly gives a sense of immediacy for the reader, while many new writers find it easier to project themselves into their main character if they can write in his or her name. But that assumes, of course, that the main character is somehow like the writer, which may or may not be the case. Meanwhile, if your book is all narrated by I, you can only put into your story things which are experienced by that character, which may prove to be rather restricting. Now, there are all sorts of pitfalls for the novelist, and many of them relate to the issue of providing a balanced narrative. Every time you introduce a character into the story, you have decisions to make. Of course, you want to populate your landscape with a variety of people to maintain interest, but don't feel you have to decorate every one of them in elaborate detail. The same goes for irony. All too often, an inexperienced writer will create a strong ironic situation and then spoil it by spelling out what they mean by it, as if readers were too stupid to understand. A few contrasting details should serve to make the point clear. A big challenge for new novelists is dialogue. What is the relationship between conversation as people really speak and as it is in novels? Well, it depends. If you recorded actual conversations and copied them straight into your narrative, readers would get confused and bored, all those unfinished sentences going nowhere. On the other hand, you don't want to write out page-long utterances by characters, as these will seem unrealistic to an extreme, but you can insert minor descriptions and actions to vary the pace and add interest. Well, I hope what I'm saying is encouraging and not too off-putting about the various difficulties. Are there any questions at this point?
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Hey kid, don't ever let them